Welcome, welcome. I'm Sophia from Lipstick Junkie Forever, and today's video is going to be my very quick and impromptu review of the new Makeup by Mario Surreal Skin Liquid Foundation. This just launched today, December 26, 2022. It is available at Sephora, and I highly recommend that you actually go in store to try it out because the shade range, though it is moderately expansive, it is 30 shades in the range, it isn't enough, I would say. I definitely needed to go in to get shade matched because generally I wear foundations that are fair light neutral, and this foundation is shade 2N, which is described as fair neutral. I generally would not go for something that is fair without having the light aspect of it as well. I generally need a shade deeper in description than this, but I'm glad that I went in because I got matched, and this is my perfect match. A few details about this foundation: it is $42 for 1 ounce of product. As I said, there are 30 shades in the range, and let me read a few things that Sephora is saying about this foundation. They're describing it as a breathable, luminous foundation that effortlessly builds and blends to illuminate the complexion with customizable, long-wearing coverage. If you watch this video, you will see me applying this foundation. I will be discussing how I feel about the foundation before I apply any other powder products over it or any other makeup over it, as well as a discussion of how I feel about it after I've applied the makeup, as well as my final thoughts. This is what the packaging looks like. It has a glass bottle and a white cap. It also comes with a pump that I really appreciate. I love a foundation with a pump, I have to say. This is what it looks like. It's got a slightly runny consistency, but not too much, which is great. And let's try it out. So on one side of the face, I'm going to be using a wet sponge, and let's do that on this side of the face. Okay, so Mario says that we can apply this with a sponge or a brush. So I'm trying it out with a sponge first. It is a brand new sponge. So as I'm applying this, just so you know, I am not wearing any primers. I'm not even wearing sunscreen. I was only wearing some moisturizer, and that's it. Okay, so I'm wearing the foundation on this side, obviously. I'm wearing absolutely nothing on this side. It's quite a big difference. So let's try the other side with a brush. So Mario says that this foundation is buildable, and that's actually what I'm doing right now. I wanted to show you what this looks like built up. So this is like one layer. I'm going in with my second layer now. Mario says that this foundation is buildable, and that's what I'm trying to do. See how it applies with a brush, but also how buildable it is. And this is what the foundation looks like applied. I used 2 layers of foundation on each side. I used a sponge for this side and a brush on this side. I really wanted to see whether the different methods of application wielded different results. And while there are some slight differences in how the foundation worked while I was applying it and maybe how it looks now, the differences are so minimal that even I can barely discern it on my own skin. The only reason I can is because I'm actually looking for these things right now. So let's discuss those differences right now. With the brush, I noticed that there was some streaking when I was applying the foundation, but I was really easily able to go with the brush itself and just blend that out. Generally speaking, all foundations streak on me if I use a brush. So then I always have to go over with a sponge in order to get rid of those streaks. In this instance, I didn't even need to use a sponge in order to get rid of those brush streaks. I was just able to use the brush, so that's actually a plus. On top of that, the only other difference I noticed with the brush application was that there was just the tiniest bit less coverage than with the sponge side. But the only way you would be able to see that is if you were this close to my face. And if you were that close to my face, I really hope you would not be critiquing my foundation coverage. So it's really minimal. The difference is so slight that you can actually assume that you can use these methods of application interchangeably. You got a clean sponge, use a sponge. You got a clean brush, use a brush. Whichever one you want, just go for that. It's going to create really beautiful results. This is, oh, sorry, I did not powder my face yet, so now my hair is sticking to it. So let's discuss coverage a little bit more at length. At one layer of application, the foundation toned down the redness, the splotchiness, the ruddiness, the pigmentation, whatever you want to call it, it toned it down. But those things were still visible. My skin looked like skin. It was less perfected. At two layers, it's basically perfected. It's wiped out any redness in my skin. None of it is visible. My skin looks absolutely stunning. Looks stunning. The only thing you can see is really this little tiny bit of a leftover pimple. It's just a little bit, but I can probably just like go over it with this right here. It's reduced even further. So I'm going to go do the rest of my makeup, and I'm going to be right back to let you know how this foundation plays with other makeup. Be right back. And I'm back. I did my full face of makeup. I used powders, I used creams, I used brushes, I used my fingers. And as it stands right now, without me doing a full multi-hour wear test, I'm really loving this foundation and how it worked with the products that I use, regardless of the formulation that I use and regardless of how I apply those products. I will do a full multi-hour, multi-day wear test and will update you guys on it. But that might be either a dedicated video in a couple of weeks or in another video where I'm discussing the products that I'm using recently, the new makeup products that I'm using recently. But before that time, I want to go into a few things that I'm really liking about this foundation, just in case those things appeal to you as well. I love how full coverage this foundation is for something that is so light and moisturizing. It really feels like nothing on the skin, but my skin does feel moisturized. I mean, this is still a little bit tacky on my skin to the touch. That's because I didn't really set it with a lot of powder. Actually, I barely set it with powder. I also love that this foundation is adjustable in coverage. With one layer, it was just light coverage. It was very perfecting, but to a lighter degree, and it just gets more perfecting the more foundation that you use. Love that, because that just means that I only need one foundation for different times and different ways that my skin looks. I don't have to buy two foundations. I don't have to figure out what's going to work for my skin today, what's going to work for my skin tomorrow. Just one foundation. It's all in that. I also really like that I didn't, as I said, have to set my foundation with a lot of powder in order to then go in with colored products, with powder color products over it. I used powder bronzer, powder blush, powder highlighter, and as you can see, it all looks very nice and melded into the skin. It didn't leave those pigmentation spots. I don't know if this has happened to any of you guys, but a lot of times if I don't set my foundations very well with powder, what will happen is that when I go in then with powder bronzer or blush, they will create patches, and then I can't blend out those patches because there's like a pigmented spot here, pigmented spot there, pigmented spot there, like red or bronzy, and it's just not looking very good. This didn't do that. If anything, when I applied it, it just became even more perfected. If anything, the tackiness and the moisture from the foundation actually made the powders look less powdery. It just melded into the skin, melded into the foundation really beautifully. And I'm really liking that look because it's just looking like beautiful skin that doesn't look like a ton of makeup has been applied on it. I'm really, really enjoying that aspect of it. Now, am I saying that this foundation is absolutely unique? No, I'm not. But if these are aspects of a foundation that appeal to you, this might be something that that would work for you, and maybe something that you can go to Sephora and at the very least get a sample of. The shade range is a little bit tricky to work with, I would say. I use shade 2N, which is fair neutral, whereas usually I'm fair to light neutral. So I think it might be something that you definitely have to go in and get shade matched for. But don't stay in Sephora when you get shade matched. Walk outside in the daylight to see how it actually works, because Sephora lighting, not the best. They could work on that. But overall, my main opinion about this foundation is that it is pretty great. It's not unique, but it is pretty great, and it's really nice for this time of year when we need extra moisture, because it is very moisturizing. As it stands right now, being so moisturizing feeling will actually be its saving grace for me during this winter, because my skin does get a little bit drier in the winter, but also I'm using tretinoin. So overall, there are all these drying agents and environment happening in my life, and I'm hoping that basically this little tiny $42 foundation saves me from it all. Might be a lot to ask of a foundation, but I'm going to anyway. Overall, I'm just gonna stop just going on and on and on with this. I'm just gonna tell you now, I'm keeping this. I'm loving it. I'm glad that the shade that I found actually matches me. I hope this review helped you, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.